There we go. Now I think you guys can hear us. Awesome.
There we go.
Welcome everybody to The Sprint. It's our bi-weekly talk show, just talking speedrunning news and stuff, and we're going to be analyzing a speedrun later, specifically Half-Life, the world record, and we're just going to be talking about a bunch of different things. So to get us started, we're going to jump into our news of the week. By the way, I'm JHobz, and I'm joined by Darkman and Frozen, as per usual.
Hello.
How are you gentlemen doing this week?
Slightly sick.
Highly caffeinated.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's good. Well, you know what? Screw that. That's a great transition. Great segue into the first news thing that I wanted to bring up, which is that the Grand Pooh Bear did a speedrun sessions event previously in Portland that we talked about when that one was happening. We talked a little bit in detail. And there was a second one that just took place over in Vegas on Saturday. I'm just kind of teasing it right now. We're gonna talk about it a little bit later because I was actually there and got to participate and help out. And so we'll talk about that more at the end of the show when we're talking about our personal stuff or checkpoint. But I think it went very well, and it'll be cool to see if they continue to do more of those. The reason that was a good segue is because it was sponsored by Red Bull, so the caffeinated thing.
I was wondering where you were possibly going with that.
You know, those great segues that you have to explain afterwards. Anyway.
I hope they continue doing them, and I hope that they get around to a lot of the country. I mean, they look like they're a blast. I mean, I think that the night before it started, I was looking on like Google Flights. I'm like, how much would it be if I just flew out tonight?
Oh, you should have, but you also got to factor in the extra amount of money that you'll lose at the casino. So
right,
that was me. I unfortunately didn't do so hot. But in any case, we'll talk about that more a little bit later. For now, I'm going to jump into our next thing, which is that the ESA summer schedule is out. It's going to be from July 19th to the 28th in Malmo, Sweden. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that.
Close enough.
They're raising money for the Swedish Alzheimer's Foundation, which is super cool. Alzheimer's is something that I feel like doesn't get brought up a lot with speedrunning, and it's really neat to see somebody focused on that.
Absolutely.
Anybody gotten a chance to take a look at the schedule and see what they picked, what they're looking forward to, anything like that?
I did. Saw a few things that kind of stuck out to me. Obviously,
Mega Man.
Yeah, always Mega Man. I always there's a Mega Man 4 race between Prissy and Joka, two of our heavy hitters in the European Mega Man community, so that's always cool.
I always find it funny you call him Joka. He's always Yoka to me.
Yeah.
He's always Yoka. So, yeah, because we know him from Ori also. But yeah, he's always Yoka to us.
Also, kind of all the interesting things that I saw. There's a huge three-way Sekiro race. Obviously,
yes.
You know, what's up? I had this up and now it's not there anymore. But yeah, it was a big three-way race. I know Savvy is involved with it. Let me just look up real quick who's
I know where that one was.
I can get there before you.
It is Distortion, Savvy, and Larsa.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I think this is the first major marathon that Sekiro is going to be in, so that's really neat.
It's also all memories, which I think is super neat, rather than just like any percent, which is a lot shorter.
And then also, probably the thing that stuck out to me was, interestingly enough, right after Mega Man, is there's a Super Mario Maker 2 showcase, I guess. Like, it's hard to really know what it's going to be given the game is not out.
Yeah. And that's one of my favorite things about this schedule in general is just the list of runners for certain games. It's somebody and friends. So like the Mario Maker 2, it's Big John and friends. What does that entail?
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. Don't know yet. I think that's because of the way that ESA does their submission process, where they actually allow a few newer games to be submitted later. It's weird with Mario Maker 2 because, like, normally they wait until the game comes out to accept a submission for it. They just put a specific period that's closer to the close of submissions for submitting those newer games. But Mario Maker 2 obviously isn't out yet.
Yeah.
I guess you can really get most of what you need to know from Mario Maker 1. Like,
sure.
Yeah, it's going to, the things that are changing, that you're going to be able to make good things and going to be interesting. It's the same thing as Mario Maker 1, basically.
You have to imagine unless Nintendo does something wild with like the physics or something like that it's only going to be Mario Maker 1 or better. So like you can kind of accept it off that. So I think that's kind of an edge case that works out.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely saw a few things that were jumping out to me for sure. I think it's neat that they've got like just a bunch of random like NES games like Tennis and DuckTales and Die Hard and Joe and Mac and stuff. But I also saw I saw Stardew Valley, which I think is neat because it's not kind of your classic speedrun. It's it's more akin to like speedrunning Minecraft or something. But it has like day and night cycles, and I think that's interesting. There's also Katana Zero, a new game, pretty new game that is I've heard a lot of people have been really enjoying, so gonna be looking out for that one. And Freedom Planet and Celeste are both super cool games. Freedom Planet, I feel like it's been a while since we've seen it anywhere, and I think it's always a great game. It's very Sonic-like as is its design, and it because of that, it's also a great speed run. And then Celeste by TGH is always a classic. Like, we got to mention Celeste every
It's
episode.
really cool to see some. There's a good amount of US runners who are going to ESA, which is awesome. That's a heck of a trip. It's much like seeing Europeans coming to GDQs. It's really cool to be able to see that. One thing that stuck out to me was SWAT 4. I know nothing about this. It's nothing whatsoever, but there are like 10 people on this list for a co-op run, and I want to know more about this.
This is the great ESA meme because they've done this for like almost every event for like the last 5 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I missed it apparently.
It's really I watch a little bit of it one ESA. It's like really bizarre. It's just basically a goof off show. Like it's really funny.
I like how they have a couple of those every single time though, and I didn't know that SWAT 4 was a consistent one. Yeah. Last time I saw geolocator or whatever that one is, where you have to like find out where you are in the world, and there were just 2 people co-op speedrunning that, which was cool to watch, but also massive meme and awesome.
I'm liking how many like co-op races I'm seeing, as well as just races in general. I think that's pretty neat. Like the SMB 3 is like a relay race, and then I saw something else that was Binding of Isaac is just a race, but I definitely saw some other ones that were like relay races, which is super cool to see. Oh yeah, Cuphead, or not relay races, but co-op races. Cuphead on there as well. So a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff on there.
And I was about to say that's just the mainstream. There's also a second stream for those who aren't familiar with it. So you got I think about 5 days or so on the mainstream. They do it a little bit lighter compared to like the mainstream, but still pretty cool.
Yeah, their second stream is always a like it you never know what you're gonna find there kind of like things. That's where they'll try random things. So anyways, ESA July 19th to the 28th, and it is a charity marathon to raise the money for the Swedish Alzheimer Foundation. So be sure to check that out, of course. And that'll be after SGDQ and stuff. So you got some time. All right, so on to our next news thing. I'm gonna let Darkman actually take this one, but Skyward Sword, there's a brand new glitch found, right?
Yeah, so it's really one glitch that leads to like a bunch of things happening. So, for those who aren't familiar with Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, it's a bit of a longer speed run in the 3D Zeldas. About a few weeks ago, it was about 4 hours and 50 minutes or so, which is honestly much more like even faster than it was like a few years ago. It was in like the high 5 to low 6 hour range. So it's come down, but recently, one of the runners of Skyward Sword by the name of Gymnast, I'm sure a lot of people might be familiar with his Wind Waker runs, but he's been doing a lot of Skyward Sword recently. I believe he ran it at SGDQ last year. He discovered a thing that is called reverse bit magic, and what that is essentially is like, I'm not going to claim to really understand how this works, but the gist of it is basically there are, of course, memory locations where like certain things happen in a video game, right? Like you obviously have to use memory to store certain things. And the way Skyward Sword works, like a lot of video games, is, in order to like trigger certain cutscenes, certain things happening in the game, you need certain flags to happen in memory. Well, what the runners were able to, what Gymnast was able to discover, and now the community is kind of like taking it to a whole nother level, is they managed to find a way to load flags from other saves into your current save. And what that allows you to do is to skip many things that otherwise you would have to do. So I want to kind of list off the things that they have done. Now, granted, I have never played Skyward Sword, so I'm not really familiar with the game. So I'm sure I might be like overlapping certain things. But yeah, let's see. We have so this is 2 weeks ago. This trick was discovered, so keep that in mind. We have the early claw shot trial. We skip everything in Sandship after getting Bow via the early Elden trial gate. We have the early Land Ryu trial. We have the Sand Sea skip. We have the early Temple of Time statue. We have the new Magma Myth skip. And the biggest one out of all those, if that wasn't big enough, like these 6 skips that I just said,
Right.
We now have the Song of the Hero skip, which is the biggest one out of all of them because it skips about like 75 minutes of the speedrun.
Jeez.
Yes. So all those things were simply as a result of this one thing called reverse bit magic. They found ways to basically, trigger flags that they otherwise, would have to through the course of normal gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So the world record of this game has gone down from 450 about a couple of weeks ago to now 2 hours and 26 minutes.
Wow.
That's
that's just 2 weeks, like you were saying.
People need to play with it more. People are still discovering things with other tricks that they already knew about, let alone this.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Anytime I hear we can do this thing from this other save file, my mind immediately goes, category split. New category coming to the leaderboards this Sunday. Like that's what I always hear. I imagine that kind of thing happened with this trick as well.
Yeah, but Song of the Hero skip is just literally like a few days old. So the 226 is not even like very optimized. So it will go down even more over the course of the next few weeks, maybe months. So yeah, I don't know. Like when I always think of Skyward Sword, I always think about that, like, I don't want to say like the ugly stepchild, but like, it's always been like that 3D Zelda, like in the main series that people kind of like, they don't really pay attention too much in the speedrunning community. But I think with this is bringing a lot of attention. Like I was just watching Gymnast's stream like last night. He had like 1,000 viewers, which I'm sure is not normal for him. So, it's blowing up, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, always good to see more developments. Because again, like I was getting at, I was jokingly, but even if you don't like it, because you're like, oh, well, it's way too glitchy and stuff, and it's like rewriting memory or changing memory. Yeah, I don't want that in my speedrun. Well, they're gonna make another category for it. They probably already did. Like, you just go run this other version of it. No worries. But then now you have a version that's also shorter. If you were like, I love Skyward Sword, but I didn't have time to do all these other things.
Yeah,
I didn't have time to do these long runs.
Yeah, exactly.
I've actually known a decent amount of people who were saying that even in the like Zelda communities, they're like, no, I just don't want to run a game that long. No more excuses.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Moving on though, let's see what's coming up next. We got E3 coming up pretty soon here. Next weekend, right? I believe, or this weekend. And Ubisoft is hosting an E3 press conference and pre-conference stream, actually. And this is the reason we're talking about it, the reason it's super cool, is that our friends Glackham and Spike Vegeta have been invited out to go do a run of Rayman 2, I believe. Glackham is going to be doing the run, Spike is going to be commentating it, and everyone, I mean, Spike told me about this a little bit before, and like when he heard that, he was just like, there's only one reason I can think of why would they would want us to come randomly do a Rayman 2 speedrun, or really 2 reasons. And he said it's basically new Rayman game, which made him really excited, or remakes, like a remake like trilogy or just remakes in general. And either way, cool.
Yeah, Rayman's a great game.
Yeah. Oh, and the Rayman games are awesome for speedrunning, especially Rayman Legends. If nobody's checked it out, like, it's unfortunately in that like hour-and-a-half range, which is a little long for a 2D platformer, I feel, a lot of the time. But it's a really cool one that has like a lot of awesome tech to it. Where are we going to go?
A surprising amount of tech, actually. But yeah, I was going to say, I think that the more likely scenario, because it's Rayman 2, is just a remake of that, which is awesome. I've seen an HD remaster of an old game that people love. I mean, I'm never going to really complain about that.
I was about to say, I feel like Ubisoft is probably going to go down the route of like the Crash and the Spyros, and like why remake one game, just do a trilogy like that.
Yeah, the only weird thing for that is that Rayman 1 is 2D, and then Rayman 2 and 3 are both 3D, I believe. Or I know Rayman 3 definitely is. I'm pretty sure Rayman 2 also is. So like, it's kind of weird in that you'd go from like what would normally be two completely different engines, probably, and just completely different styles of game and everything like that. But I could still see them doing it and them just being like, okay, well, this one's a 2D and these are 3D.
Yeah, I don't imagine the engine is much of an issue because, like, with the Spyro,
they don't have to. Yeah,
well, like with the Spyro trilogy, like the 3 games are on completely different engines, and for the remaster, they just put it all.
Are they?
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know anything about that, I'll be honest.
I didn't know that. They play so like congruently across them that I didn't realize they were in different engines.
I would have assumed that it would make a difference just based on size of the game, right? Have like a bigger hard drive or bigger download.
Well, it is a gigantic download, the Reignited trilogy. Like, they only have the first game on the disc, and you have to download 2 and 3. It's not even the full version of the first game. But in any case, we're excited to see it, and it's going to be cool to see like a speed run there, let alone whatever news might be associated with it. Hey, maybe there's no news at all, and they're just randomly wanting to get people interested in Rayman again to see if there's, like, maybe they're trying to drum up interest for a new game. But I think it's pretty likely they're going to announce something new with Rayman from that. And I think you're right, Frozen. I think remakes are more likely. It's very possible they also said, like, hey, Glack, can you do a run of any Rayman game or whatever? And he picked Rayman 2. I know it's his favorite to do. Sure. And it should be a fun watch too, because they recently like realized that in the game there's like a cheat code you can enter to skip the cutscenes. So like for a long time they had to go through all these annoying cutscenes and everything, and then they were just like, oh, this is an in-game thing, like an in-game code you can enter to get rid of these cutscenes, and now it's a lot faster. But yeah, be sure to check that one out. Do we know exactly when that is? I don't remember. I'm looking it up. June 10th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time is when their stream will go live. So that should be right about when the speedrun is starting. Be sure to check that out. And that kind of segues nicely into our next thing. We wanted to do another little roundtable discussion. We've done a few of these before. The goal of this segment isn't so much to come up with a definitive answer for something, but really just kind of talk about a discussion we think has multiple different angles to it and everything, and see where we land on it, I guess. And so for this one, we're going to look at, should games be made specifically targeting speedrunners? And I'll give like a few examples of these two to kind of kick us off. We've seen in the past, especially around times of like E3 and stuff, where they want to get a community to buy into a game very quickly, especially a community like speedrunning is a small community, but we're pretty evangelic about our games. Like when we get a game that we're really excited about, we try to get as many people playing it as possible. And we've seen a few games like this before where a game was specifically made with speedrunning in mind. And should we see more of that? Is that a thing? Or should we just be like, no, developers, like, just make your game and then we'll figure out how to speedrun it? Mm-hmm. Couple examples. The game Speedrunners by Tiny Build, I believe, which is unfortunately not a very good game to speedrun in most people's eyes anyways, because it's mainly a multiplayer game.
It's a great party game. It's
a fun
game, just not really a speedrun.
Exactly. That's kind of what the crux of this discussion is like, I don't think like because a developer is targeting the speedrunning audience, that means that they're going to make a worse game. I just don't always know if that's going to lead them to make a game that's better for speedrunning. Another couple examples, Celeste was like, it had a speedrunner on the development team, and I would say that they definitely did some things that very much were about targeting speedrunning, and that one has been received very well. Mm-hmm. Super great casual game and good game for speedrunning, and they've continued to kind of help make it better for speedrunning in terms of like adjusting the in-game clock and stuff like that. Then there are also games like Hat in Time, which came out and is a very good game for speedrunning. It had a lot of features in it, but since has kind of had this, I think, feeling from the community that the devs have kind of become ashamed of speedrunning of it a little bit, and patched out a lot of speedrunning exclusive glitches and tricks and stuff like that. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Just kind of jump in on this. Should games be developed specifically for speedrunning?
as a general rule, I don't think that there should be a focus on speedrunning. I think that if you build a good game and have the movement be fun, something unique, something like Shovel Knight, for example, I don't believe that they intended it to be good for speedrunning. But once speedrunners started picking it up, they catered towards it. They started helping in various ways, taking out some RNG or just like guidance in ways, not patching out bugs, things of that nature where you can support the community after we've already adopted it. That's important.
With even them, they even enlisted speedrunners to help when they made the second campaign, when they made Plague Knight. They actually like had Smoggy and Tolu, maybe, I don't remember. They had a few speedrunners actually go and like test the base mechanics of this character and say, hey, how does that feel? And they took their feedback and they adjusted the character because of it, and it became something that was, to what they've said anyways, for the better.
And not to mention, I mean, I think at the time also Muncha was already working for them, Muncha Koopas, that is.
Oh no, not yet. That was a little later.
No,
he is now. Yeah.
And now they've even hired a QA analyst or a speedrunner as a QA analyst. And that, yeah. I mean, I think that that's important, but if you build a game for speedrunning specifically and then it's not as good for speedrunning, then you've wasted resources when you could have been building a better game. Possible. Yeah. Development is weird. That's not necessarily true.
So I think you can, in a sense, make a game geared towards speedrunners. Some of the things you could, there's like a lot of like, I think, little things that speedrunners are looking for that you could do, and that in effect constitutes like making a game towards speedrunners. Things like in-game times, cutscene skips, just like quick ways to like reset and kind of load like individual parts of the game, like things like that. Like
skipping cutscenes.
Like you can support speedrunners that way with your game, but no speedrunner is going to play your game if your game sucks. Like that's what
right.
it comes down to. So I don't really want to say that like, you can't make a game towards speedrunners, because like I feel like this is just like a universal constant in that it doesn't really matter what speedrunner, casual player, hardcore gamer, whatever it is. Like if you don't have a good game, it's just nobody's going to want to play it. Mm-hmm. So like I don't really think that's just like a thing that we have to like separate from speedrunning. So like I think that should be like something that goes without question. You make a good game, and then if it is a good game, well, speedrunners will probably come to it, even if it's not like, the most like, it may not be 1,000 people or whatever, but like speedrunners will probably come to it if it's a good game.
Yep.
So
and I think
I think it's just more about like not only supporting the speedrunners with like little options like that, but also just like being receptive to them after the game is released. I think that's the most telling thing, is if you're willing to be receptive to them after release, not necessarily before.
And I think even to kind of extend on that, on what you were saying about just like make a good game first, like obviously that's pretty much, you ask like 99 out of 100 speedrunners, they're going to say make a good game. That's what we care about. But I think also that if you don't have like a passion for speedrunning, it'll kind of show if you're trying to make a game that you think speedrunners will like, as opposed to if you do have a passion for it, guess what? That's not going to mean that you're just going to make a game that you're like, this is going to be the next most popular speedrunning game. It just probably means that your core like movement of your character, assuming there is such in your game, is probably going to feel pretty good. Like that is, for a lot of people when it comes to speedrunning, it's down to how fluid do the mechanics feel? Can everything be moved from one mechanic to the next very smoothly, just easy to control? Definitely feels the controls are tight and it feels precise. So I think that's kind of where like, should you target a game for speedrunners? It's like, are you a speedrunner? Like, do you like speedrunning games? Then yeah, maybe. I mean, that's, you're going to make something that you would have liked probably just as much as if, you're somebody who likes tactics style games, make a tactics style game like that you're going to be more passionate about, you're going to care about that more. To play devil's advocate on one thing you said there, which was, you said, can you make sure you can skip the cutscenes and stuff? I do agree with that for sure. But to play devil's advocate a little bit, there are definitely some games where some of the most creative skips and like just coolest skips in the run are actually because cutscenes aren't skippable.
That's fair.
Ori.
of the most interesting tech. I mean, Ori's not a bad example. Like you can specifically save and gain control during movement in cutscenes, and it's not like we would have ever found that if we could skip every cutscene. So it's like, or well, it might have been found, but like it wouldn't have been used in the same way. And then of course you have all these old N64 games where you do all these crazy setups and stuff, and like I think in some cases, and probably most cases, games are worse off for having those cutscenes that aren't skippable and everything. But is it interesting to have, like, sometimes your most cool skip in the run is specifically because you couldn't skip that cutscene? I don't know. But then you also have games like Spider-Man where unfortunately we can't really skip any of the cutscenes because of the way they do the story flags, and it's like, that's unfortunate. But I wouldn't tell them to necessarily have changed the way they did the story flag so we could have more interesting ways of getting around cutscenes. I would have rather had a cutscene skip.
Sure.
Do you guys have any other like thoughts or examples about like where because of a limitation of a game that seems like maybe an easy thing that would have been nice for them to change, it actually ended up cooler?
I'm trying to think. I feel like there's a BioShock example, but I just don't remember the BioShock games all that well. I learned them like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about just like speedrunning in general, some of the greatest like speedruns that we have in the community, some of the most enjoyable speedruns are like games that have all these unintentional glitches or unintentional things that happen. You can't create this like we're talking about Skyward Sword, right? And all this stuff. You can't create that moment, right? It happens because of like unintentional things that like you never intended for it to happen, but it happens. Like you can't like, intentionally do that. That just happens. So it's just like you kind of have to roll with it. Like make the game according to your tastes, and like, people will find a way to break it somehow.
Mm-hmm. I did just think of another example, kind of. Portal 1 specifically like caps your speed when you're moving forward and like doesn't let you do bunny hops and everything. But if you're moving backwards, you can. Is that cooler? The fact that you have to do all this crazy movement blind effectively, or where you're looking in the opposite direction because of a limitation the game put on you that seems on the surface level like it would be worse for speedrunning. That's what I'm getting at, is like, that's where I'm kind of like, I don't think you should design a game for speedrunning. I think because sometimes when you try to put those limitations, you end up with some of the coolest stuff by accident, definitely. But I mean, the big example for sure, the number one that I'm always like, every game should have this in-game timer. Like you were saying, Darkman, that's just, it's one of those things that if a developer is thinking about it, especially from the beginning, it's so easy for them to add, and it's the worst nightmare for speedrunner staff to deal with if it doesn't exist. So
right. I think my last thoughts at least are that it's really important to support the speedrunners. Like if you have any sort of concept about speedrunning or acknowledge that they exist, I think it's important to support them after the fact. Trying not to patch out glitches. So in Teslagrad, we had one glitch. I mean, it probably saved us probably 45 seconds to a minute, and they accidentally patched it out. And we were in communication with them, and they were like, okay. And they created a beta build on Steam and allowed us to easily, not even, it was a PC game, but very easily could just down patch and use that. Or we were struggling to create practice tools to allow us to save and load and stuff. And they actually ended up exposing some files to us. Doing things like that really helps foster the community. And I mean, the save tools alone for Teslagrad at least helped bring in several people and help keep me in the game for a little while longer as well. That support is really crucial.
All of that stuff is like where I'm not a big fan of down patching. We've talked about that on shows in the past, but like I wish they would leave in glitches if they're cool. If they're not cool, I totally understand. But it's also their game; they can patch.
If a casual person can run into it, I'm fine with patching it out.
Exactly.
If it's something so out of the way, so speedrunner only, why are you gonna patch it out?
Yeah, but like at the end of the day, it's their game. But like I love when a developer is down to help make tools for making practice easier. Like, and it doesn't have to be something like, oh, we're going to tell you where this file is and we're going to make this small little tool for you or whatever. It could be as simple as, like, to take the Shovel Knight example again, having isolated boss challenges. So instead of having to go to the boss fight every time, you can go to this challenge and practice it there. I know those sometimes have slightly different health values, so it's not always perfect, but so, I mean, Mega Man 11, I think, has something similar, right? Isn't there like a boss rush mode or something?
Yeah.
For Mega Man 11,
you can load up individual stages and individual bosses and stuff like that. So
yeah, so like all of that stuff, man, I wish every single game had that. It's just like the ability to built-in save states and stuff, or like a built-in debug menu that they tell you about. That's one of the things that makes practicing Ori and the Blind Forest so nice, is that you can save anywhere you want because there's a debug menu and they like told us how to access it and like left it in. They were just like, yeah, sure, whatever, nobody's gonna find this by accident. And it's just like it makes it unbelievably nicer to practice. I run into this issue all the time with Crash Bandicoot on the new one because I have to forcibly game over. Oops, sorry, hit my mic there. I have to forcibly game over in order to practice the proper cycles, which is just like, it just adds 15 seconds to every single attempt for me, and that's not fun to deal with. But I also don't blame devs for not spending time on making that. If you can, and you can make it, a cool thing for everybody to begin with, then I love it. I love when they add that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's pretty much it for our roundtable discussion. Seems like we're all kind of like, some things yes, other things no. Definitely don't do it if you're just doing it to try to get in on an audience like early. Try to make sure that you actually care about it. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and get we're going to be going quickly to a little break. We're just going to show the world record VOD for Half-Life as we get our guest Alex Howe set up and ready to go. He's going to be breaking down this record for us. And yeah, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Just a couple moments.
Intended strats. Need more music for late game. $43, boys. Jesus Lord. Such a speed. It's like 10 seconds faster than I've ever been. Okay, what do I have for music? Just some random. Hopefully it's good. Hello, Tokta mode.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Sprint, where it is time for our run analysis segment, where we take a run every show, different speed run, and bring over a guest to help us break it down, see where the runner did well, where the runner needs to improve, some of the cool tricks and skips in a run. So with this being June now, we are only a few weeks away from SGQ. Gosh, that is coming up very fast.
Only one more episode after this one.
That's right. So we thought it'd be a cool idea to, in the month of June, for our two shows to show off some of the runs that will be at SGDQ, and one of them is going to be indeed Half-Life. And our guest to help us break down this world record is Alex Howe. So Alex, welcome.
Hello.
Like thanks for being here, taking the time to help us break this all down.
Of course.
So kind of talk to me a little bit about Half-Life as a speedrun. Obviously, everybody is pretty familiar with Half-Life the game. Pretty popular FPS by Valve. But talk to me a little bit about the speed game. What is it that sets it apart? What makes it tick?
So the movement in the game is super, super cool. You've probably seen it in the VOD that was being shown just a minute ago. But the movement in the game is like super high skill cap. Like you can always get better at it, and it just makes the game super addicting to run. And I would imagine pretty fun to watch, but I'm a little biased on that front.
Cool. Now talk to me in specific about this category. So we are showcasing the scriptless category with the WAN version. So let's start with
What-
WAN, because
what is this?
I'm like totally confused.
I've been wondering for 2 weeks, and no one will tell me what this category is. So,
So,
HP.
so the WAN version of the game was the game that was released with the disc copies up until Steam started becoming Valve's main distribution platform. The Steam version of Half-Life patches out, well, it doesn't patch anything out, but it adds a cap to how fast you can move, similar to like in Portal, that you can't move fast in the forward direction. But in this game, in the WAN version, you can move as fast as you want within the game's limits of 2,000 in any direction units per second. So without the WAN version, this game would just not have the cool movement, unfortunately. So we have to play on the older version.
And scriptless specifically, what is that exactly?
So in this game, there are things called scripts that are basically, you can basically write, it's almost like a little program that will do things for you in the game. For instance, instead of bunny hopping being a manual action you have to do with the scroll wheel, with bunny hopping being the main form of movement, you can just hold down the space bar and it will do everything for you. It's kind of it's sort of a weird, legitimate thing that we do for the community. It's kind of like almost in my eyes at least, like a proof of concept thing. Like, what can this game be done with, or how fast could you do the game, given that you did not have physical limitations, like not being able to bunny hop 100% consistently and stuff like that.
almost like kind of getting closer to a task or something where like repeated actions, you're allowing macros effectively.
Yes, it's definitely, it's just kind of a different way that some people prefer to play the game, and I think that it's good to foster those kind of if people want to play like that, I think they should be able to, but separately from the main category, of course.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so most people, I have to imagine, run scriptless.
Yeah, scripted, there's a few people who take scripted more seriously in the community. Most people prefer scriptless, but scripted has its fair share of runners, and it has its fair share of uniqueness as well. There's some things you can only do in this in scripted versus scriptless that make it faster.
So I guess Half-Life is, you kind of alluded to with the bunny hopping and kind of the highest skill ceiling. It's a very, I guess, difficult game to get into. It's there's a lot going on, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. It's pretty tricky to get into. There's a lot of roadblocks when learning the game that make it especially difficult. But what this game, the difficulty in this game, really just comes down to optimizing it and getting really low times, as with any game, just because. Every jump, you can optimize every jump in the entire game. It's insane. Every half second can be optimized.
Cool. So speaking of optimization, I think it's the kind of perfect chance to talk about like this world record by Maxam. Kind of talk a little bit about the history of the world record. Obviously, with Half-Life, it has a very long and rich history. But so if maybe you want to kind of talk about like some of the recent world record history with this game.
So a few years ago, one of the biggest changes this game's had recently was the switch from the hard difficulty to easy. So the reason we used to run on hard is that you would take more damage, which would end up boosting you further if you got hit by enemies or grenades. So you would get more boost, which would allow you to do some skips you couldn't do otherwise. But the one skip that required hard was rerouted to be done with easy. So there was no reason to not play on easy. After that point, a Russian runner by the name of Shar was one of the main runners who was pushing the run down a lot. He ended up pushing the run all the way down from just under sub 33 to sub 30. So getting the first 29-minute time was like a huge deal. And also, in the more recent time, it's been two runners, one Proto-AUS, who discovered one of the most significant tricks that we're going to go over in a little bit. As well as Maxam, the runner we're watching now. And Maxam's the best runner in the game right now, by everyone's standard. He's insane, and no one knows how he does it. It's incredible.
Always love that when you just have this runner that's like that good. So how good is Maxam? Like, how good is his like times compared to other people?
I mean, like, a lot of the clips that we're gonna watch, he ends up making mistakes, but he's still like pretty big ones, but he's still able to beat the game faster than anyone has ever done it by over like 30 seconds. So it's like he can make tons of errors and still be faster than me playing incredible. In a game this storied of history, 30 seconds is so much.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many people who have worked on optimizing this game. So many runners in general. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this game's been ran since it came out pretty much, and it's been out for 21 years, so.
Is it? Oh, God.
It came out in 98.
Oh, is that? Yeah.
I feel old now.
We're all old.
All right, so I think with that, we're going to go ahead and kind of dive into this this run and see what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and start off with this first clip to kind of demonstrate some of the movement aspects of the game.
Okay. So the movement in the game, as I mentioned before, is bunny hopping, and as you can see, what Maxam's constantly doing is kind of shaking his mouse in the air. What he's doing when he's doing this is he's also moving in the same direction that he's turning his mouse whenever he does this. This kind of allows you to build speed in the air because you're moving on two different planes at once, and it just kind of adds the speed up into the one direction. And he's jumping in between every jump because when you jump as soon as you land, the game doesn't have enough time to apply the friction that the ground has with the player. So you end up not losing any of your speed, and you're able to just continuously build up more and more.
So in order to kind of do that and make sure that you're timing that jump perfectly, that's where you were talking about using the scroll wheel, right?
Yeah, so normally people use spacebar to jump in like every video game that is done on a computer. But in this game, we have to constantly scroll the mouse wheel up and down to do our actions in order to be able to time these things. Because this game runs at 100 FPS, and doing frame perfect inputs every jump at 100 FPS would be very sad. And movement in this game would just be really big oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a little bit of Portal 2 co-op running, and it's just like that's the first thing. You immediately gotta get that scroll wheel in there.
So with the speed, do you were saying that the WAN version does not have a cap? Is it completely infinite, or is the cap just higher versus the Steam version?
There's still a cap built into like the engine of the game. You can move 2,000 units per second in any direction. For reference, the number at the bottom of the screen, like the very bottom, is how fast the player's moving. So getting up to 2,000 speed you can only do with certain tricks that are going to be shown later on. But in the Steam version, the cap is around like 570 or so. So not very high at all. Like you can see him go faster than that throughout this clip a few times.
Gotcha.
So really, like, bunny hopping is kind of like the main like movement mechanic of this game that kind of separates like a lot of the other runners, and like, you know, how fast can you go based on like how optimized is your bunny hopping.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like if you're a really good runner of this game, it's because your movement is super crisp and you're able to pull off everything very fast and consistently.
Yeah. I kind of think of it a lot about, like, you know, with the Mega Man games when you're sliding, it's like, how precise is your sliding? How good are you chaining your slides? That sort of thing. I imagine it's a lot similar.
Yeah, it's for sure similar.
Do you find that most people just practice their bunny hopping within this game because it's like this one's kind of more particular? Because there are a lot of games with bunny hopping, or is it like they jump into a Quake Live match and practice it there? Or is it just like, nah, there's too many quirks for this one specifically?
There's actually a lot of people who run this game who come from other bunny hopping communities. Like one of the top runners who has the scripted record, Parkles. He originally started bunny hopping from Counter-Strike Source. That's where like bunny hopping is pretty popular for like custom servers. There's also a lot of players who've come from like there's like a thing called KZ. It's like sort of jumping trials, like obstacle courses almost. And a lot of players specifically do like those challenge maps in this game's engine. So a lot of people like practicing with those. So people do things in different games all the time, and it can translate over.
Okay. Because yeah, I know that was always a big problem for me with Portal 2 co-op, was getting better at bunny hopping. It's so deep how good you can get at that stuff.
I'd also like to mention that I love the fact that there are bunny hopping communities. Like, people can come from bunny hopping communities. I completely understand, but just that term is really funny.
Yeah,
they've been around since these games have been out.
Yeah,
basically.
it's
insane. Yeah, I mean, people have been bunny hopping since Quake came out.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on now. So we're gonna feature the first skip, which is the test chamber skip.
So this is the most significant recent finding in the game. what this trick is it's called an object boost, where when you move an object, the game will also move Gordon, the player, in that same direction. So what Maxam does here is he lines himself up on a very particular spot, looking at a very particular angle, so that he'll get launched off of like a slanted, the slanted weird things that are coming out of the center reactor. And what this does is it allows you to launch up into the ceiling of the map, where for some reason there is a trigger that will take you to the next map. Normally, to get to the next map, you just have to wait through this cutscene, but that takes an extra minute of waiting. So we've known about this skip for multiple years. Like, it was done in Half-Life 21, which is a segmented run that came out in 2014, but we only found a way to do it without scripts in 2017, about 2 years ago. So this is a pretty significant skip for the game. It saved, I believe, about a minute when it was found.
Wow.
Cool. And like, how difficult is it? Like, why is it that it took so long since you knew about it for such a long time? Why is it so difficult to pull off?
So there's a few things. For one, scripted categories have a script that allows you to be able to do object boost a lot easier. Like, so the thing about this trick that makes it really hard as well is that again, the game runs at 100 frames per second, and this trick is frame perfect. So, but what you can see is Maxam does pause buffering for it, similar to what you can do in like Ocarina of Time, where you can pause the game to advance frame by frame. So I think mainly the difficulty just came from it being so precise of an angle and setup that no one was able to figure it out until Proto found this trick by finding a good lineup and doing it.
Wow. And specifically that pause buffering looks like it's with like quick saves.
There's actually a console command in the game that's just called pause that will just pause the game. So what you do is you set like 2 keys in your keyboard set to pause, and you hit both the keys at the same time, and it will advance like frame by frame.
Gotcha.
Yeah, a lot of creative things you can do with a keyboard.
And you see, I see that the speed actually makes it past or goes up to 2,000.
Yeah,
for that split second.
Mm-hmm. That's because you're moving in 2 planes at once, so you can move 2,000 in each plane. So you can add it up and do some Pythagorean stuff. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but you can move past 2,000, but just not in one plane. But yeah, object boosting is pretty much the only time you'll ever get to the speed cap. This trick is incredibly powerful, one of the most powerful movement mechanics in the game. It's just limited in usage because you need a movable object.
Wow.
Cool.
Alrighty, so we can go ahead and move on then. So now it's more movement in the unforeseen consequences part of the game.
Yeah. So this is the second chapter right after that skip. And one thing I really want to highlight with the movement here is you can see that Maxam not only has to maintain a high speed throughout this entire section, but he also has to make it through a bunch of obstacles that are constantly getting in his way, like getting through this door right here, being able to go through the window earlier in the clip, the entire server room earlier in the clip. Like, there's so many things that can just block you, kill you, take away all your speed, that make movement extra tricky. If it was just moving from point A to point B, it wouldn't be that interesting though. So having to make it through all these different like crevices throughout the maps is one of the main things that makes movement really hard in this game, is that you have to maintain such a high speed while getting through all these cracks.
Is there like crouching and stuff going on, or is everything tall enough where he can stay the same?
Yeah, he's crouching. Like, he crouches to get through that window, and he crouches to get through the vent coming up. The one bad thing about crouching is that it makes it so you can't turn as much, which means you can't build as much speed. So you don't want to just always have a small model. You have to like constantly. There's so many things you have to worry about at every jump. It's a lot.
The fact that I had to ask if he was crouching or not kind of like says it all, right? Like, that's nuts.
Yeah, like you have to do a lot of things at all times. It's just a lot of muscle memory.
And if you guys have not kept your eye on the speed, just keep your eye on it during one of these runs or one of these plays, and see how it barely ever drops below 500. Mm-hmm. It's impressive with every single one of these obstacles in the way.
Mm-hmm. And keep in mind that normal walking speed's 320 units per second.
Okay, and I've got a math update. If I did my math right, the cap should be 2828 if you're moving in 2 planes.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, we'll assume that I can still do high school algebra. I don't know.
Beyond me at this point.
Oh.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on then. So now the everybody's favorite cop, the Barney skip. So what's happening here?
So this guy's disclaimer: this guy's not the actual Barney. The actual Barney's earlier in the run, but every security guard has the same model, so we all call them Barney.
So I didn't even know there was an actual Barney. Oh.
Yeah, there is. So this is an AI abuse, which is a skip that allows you to use NPCs in the game to open up doors that normally you are not supposed to be able to get through. So what you're supposed to do on this map is you're supposed to go into like a freezer section where in the run it would take about a minute to go through that section. So what this skip allows us to do is that because Barney is running away from these grenades because they scare him, we can push him into this door, and in order to get away from the grenades, he'll open the door trying to get away, which is not something he's supposed to do. The only reason this works is because for some reason when you first load the map without like saving or loading on the map with quick saves, the NPC's pathing will be messed up and they'll run through doors that they're not supposed to be able to open.
Huh.
So this is a pretty significant skip and allows us to do a lot of crazy things throughout the run. For instance, the next clip is going to be a pretty large skip thanks to the same trick.
I like that he shoots you, but only once.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that.
Sometimes he'll either shoot you like once, or he can also completely murder you. Like,
wow.
In this clip, he has pretty much full HP, so he has no worry of dying. But you can. Wow. He has definitely killed a run by shooting me.
That's rough.
That's
So, aside from the randomness of him shooting you so much, there's a lot of randomness to this clip, right? That kind of affects just how much time you're going to spend on it.
Mm-hmm. So you can see that he loses a bit of time here because Barney's just kind of looking away from him for a little bit. NPCs are super awful in every video game, and in particular games from the 90s. NPCs don't work consistently, even if you do the same things every time. They work pretty well most of the time, but you can't guarantee that you'll ever be able to like 100% get this trick, because sometimes he'll just not run after you, sometimes he'll stand on top of a grenade, sometimes he'll run back into a grenade. It's just a really bad time.
And you said this only works on the first go through this level, right?
Yes.
So is there no real backup if it fails and you die or something?
The only backup you could do is if you make a save before the map. If you go back onto the map again, it will work, but you can't make a save during the map. So that adds another level of risk to the tricks, where if you mess up, you have to go, like, if you messed up at the very end right before the door, he would have to go all the way back to where the clip begins and redo it. And at this level, you hit the reset button.
Yeah. I have to imagine in a race scenario, that's real unfortunate.
Oh, yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I was gonna say good luck.
Knowing my opponent, it will, but a little bit of beef.
All right. So we'll go ahead and move on to another skip, and this is the We Got Hostile skip.
So this uses the same strategy of AI abusing. So the way that this chapter is laid out is similar to what you were mentioning with Ratchet and Clank earlier. They put the end of the chapter right at the beginning. So the main goal of the chapter is to go through a bunch of rooms and fight a bunch of people and stuff to get into this room we're in now to hit that button. But because of AI abusing, when the scientist gets scared of you, he runs towards the door because that's his only path that isn't blocked off right now. So I'll just open that door for you, and you can just go to the end of the chapter based on that.
Is the grenade the one that's thrown at the door just so that his model's not in the way, not blocking you in the door? Like,
yes, this isn't to save like a third of a second. It's because there's a trigger on the inside of the room that will normally, because when you get to that room in a run, the door will be closed. So you hit that trigger, the door will open. But if the door is already open, it will close again.
oh, okay.
What we need to do is we need to hit the trigger while the door is opening, because while it's opening, if it reads the trigger, it'll try to close it, but it's already opening, so it can't do it.
And if the scientist is standing there, you can't really get in there in time, right?
Yeah, because you literally have only the duration that the door is opening. You have very little time. It's a very, very tight trick. There's
What
a way.
Fortunate demise, dude.
Yeah. It's always silly that he just runs right into the grenade every
It
single
doesn't get old.
Oh, no.
Can we just stay on this clip for the rest of it?
Oh no.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on. So we're talking grenade boosting, which is a very popular strat in this run.
So yeah, similar to a lot of other games, grenades will give you a lot of momentum if you let them blow you up. So what you can do in this game is you can just cook a grenade by holding it in your hand, and whenever you let go of it, if you hold it for like 3-ish seconds, it will just blow up immediately. So we use this in order to give ourselves a really big boost for this section, where normally there's a train that you would ride along the bottom level. But that train moves, I think, around like 550 to 600 speed. And throughout this clip, we're moving over 1,000 pretty much the entire time. So this is just an incredibly quick way to get through the entire part of this chapter, Blast Pit. Another thing that I think is important to note with this clip is that grenade boosting is primarily what makes the HP routing in this game really interesting. So you constantly have to worry about how much HP you have at certain points, like especially in this chapter because you do a few major grenade boosts throughout it. So a lot of the routing of the game revolves around where can we get the fastest health? Where can we get the fastest health to do the next boost that we need to do?
Yeah, because it looks like, I mean, he gets real low on health here before jumping in the green drink. So I have to imagine, I imagine there's a health item that you can use, and he's just waiting to use that until right when he goes for the damage boost in there. Or are there actual health drops from that crate?
The health drops are what is where he's getting health. There's no item in the game that will just heal you wherever you are. The only way to get health is either from a scientist, from health kits that he's grabbing throughout this clip, and there's like health stations on the walls that you can hold your use button on and get healed from.
So he's actually shooting that crate to get health to drop, so you can pick it up in the radioactive waste.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's under the goo, so you can't see it, but it is there.
That's awesome.
It's pretty good.
You gotta love when that lines up too. Like if that didn't have health in it, and you maybe couldn't make this anymore. Like,
yeah, you would have to go into this with a lot more armor. One more thing to mention is that unlike in other games, the armor in this game will determine how much the grenade boosts you. If you have more armor, you'll get less speed from a grenade. So it's not as simple as wanting to have your armor be as high as possible at all times. You want, like, for this boost, he only has 2 armor. I don't know why, that's way too little. Like the best number to me is always around like 6 to 8, which gives you a lot of speed, but you generally will have around like 25 to 30 health afterward, which is enough to have a lot going into the main chapter.
okay,
So yeah.
that's neat. Risk reward system kind of built in by accident.
I just have to say, you have a good game where you go twice the speed of a train.
Yep. We don't use the trains in this game. There's a chapter where you're supposed to use a train the whole time. We don't use the train.
Turns out this was just the inspiration for Cluster Truck, dude. Like you're just going faster than all the vehicles.
That's another game games done quick this year.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to the blast bit section. So there's a lot of pretty cool movement going on here.
So this section in particular, what I want to highlight is a trick called Edge Bug that is done throughout this clip that you'll see right here. So despite following a pretty high distance there, Maxam didn't lose any HP. And the reason behind that is we do a trick called edge bugging where you can lower the FPS of this game manually at any point. And if you lower it to 20, it allows you to perform edge bugging, which is basically landing on a platform and then sliding off that platform on the same frame. And when you do this, the game will never be able to actually calculate that you took fall damage, so it just won't deal damage to you.
Ears.
Another way so like you can see if this clip replays again that he was able to fall down the entire distance that he just climbed and not take any damage because he edge bugged at the very bottom. So it's basically a way for you to be able to fall great heights without having to worry about taking damage.
Me neither.
Yeah, because it looks like he's at 74 health right now, and then
He's at 74 right here.
still, wow.
Yeah, the second one ends up dealing a little damage to you because you have a lot of momentum going in. So after you perform the edge bug, you don't like completely lose your vertical speed. So he took 5 damage there.
Gotcha.
I didn't notice that he also lowered his FPS a bit longer there. Something I probably should do because it makes you take less fall damage. So new strat for me to add.
Yeah. See, we're learning. Everybody's learning here.
Key strats.
When you lower that FPS, is that
My
actually
ears.
reducing
What is this music?
the speed that the game is running at? Like is it? Are you losing time from reducing the FPS there, or is that more about just for bunny hopping you want it as high as possible?
For bunny hopping, you want it as high as possible because
Fine.
one, you get more speed from air strafing at higher frame rates, and 100's the most you can have in the game.
Gotcha.
And also,
Me neither.
at lower frame rates, the bunny hopping like will eat your inputs a
really
lot,
sketchy.
like because you scroll really quickly with the scroll wheel. If you have not enough frame rate, it will eat a lot of those inputs.
Because it'll think that it's one continuous hold of the
Yeah.
button instead
Yeah,
of
exactly.
presses. Okay. So when reducing the FPS for this trick, he's not losing time as long as he bumps it back up right away before
Yes.
the bunny hopping starts again.
And and the game doesn't run like slower in itself. Like, like you can play like walking a distance will take the
ears.
same amount of time
What's
at
this
any
music?
frame rate. Like if
Okay.
you walk forward.
That's very nice because not
Yes.
all games do that.
By the way, don't make your game's physics FPS based and give your players an option to change the FPS to whatever they want at all times. Like, just FYI.
It's probably a good idea.
Me neither.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on now to another complete chapter skip, the power-up
That
skip.
was really
So I love this skip purely because there's like nothing special about it. It's literally just jumping over a wall. So like you have there's just a barricade here that normally you can't get over, but if you just jump into a sloped surface, it gives you a little bit more height, and you can get over the wall as a result of that. One other thing I wanted to add here is that he actually does a neat little trick where on the previous map there's a bunch of boxes that contain these items he's picking up now. And if you break those boxes but don't actually pick up the items will just be moved onto this map because the coordinates line up that where the items are here is where they were on the last map.
Wow.
So it's like a minor convenience to be able to just not stand there for an extra 2 seconds to pick up all those items. You can just do it here instead, and it's faster.
And this speed he's getting at the beginning of this clip, I imagine is that the same trick we saw way back at the beginning to get out of the long waiting, cutscene where he flew up into the air.
Yeah, so object boosting is super crazy broken, and in my opinion, like the most powerful tool for movement in this game, mainly because it has no downsides at all. Like with grenade boosting, you take a lot of damage. You can't do that too often. With regular bunny hopping, you can't get those speeds very quickly. But object boosting costs absolutely nothing. You can just do it, and you get a lot of speed, and it's super great.
Wow. I imagine there's also crouch jumping involved here to get over this little barrier.
Yeah, crouching will make it easier to get over.
Okay. Pulling that model's legs up because
Pretty much, yeah.
video games are weird.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on now. So some more trainless movement because who needs trains?
So this part of the game, you're supposed to have a train, and the game really wants you to have that train. So there's a lot of really awful things about bunny hopping on this section. It makes it one of the hardest parts of the run. So because you're not supposed to be doing this kind of stuff, the railings on the sides that you're bunny hopping on don't have the best geometry for bunny hopping. It's super easy to like slide off of them or to just get stuck on them randomly. So it's really hard to bunny hop through this section. And to add on top of it, Maxam does this grenade boost here, which is a very risky strat, mainly because you have to spend so much time getting the HP and armor you need to pull this off. So like this strat saves like 3 or 4 seconds, I believe is what the timing is, but it has such it's so easy to mess up. Like only the top 2 runners go for this at the moment, Maxam and Proto, because it's just like such a really high commitment for a trick that might end up making you lose everything.
Because if you mess up, like, I don't know if everybody watching, like, how many of you have tried bunny hopping in any game before, but if you just mess up the cadence of, like, of your rhythm of moving, even just a little bit, your speed will drop. It'll plummet instantly. So I have to imagine, especially what you're talking about with these railings having awful geometry for doing this on, like, if you lose your speed, then bam, there goes all that time investment into getting that health and everything. Just completely lost.
Thankfully, what you can do is you can just like load a quick save, which he doesn't have to do here because he's a god. But like you can see here just how like sometimes the movement can just get really sloppy on this part, and it's just like you just kind of have to roll with it. He just kind of rolls with it. he's still able to get a better time than I've ever gotten on this segment. So.
And one thing I wanted to kind of point out here is you see a lot of like obviously there's a lot of bunny hopping going on here, and you see a lot of like loading screens. How does that like kind of affect like a player's like, I guess, like, you know, their muscle memory, so to speak? Because like that loading screen is just that, like, that very tiny, like, you know, moment of time that just like breaks up like the chain of rhythm that you have going on.
Yeah, so once you get to a certain point in this game, you just kind of know where every loading screen is, because, you know, you've gone through the maps like dozens of times. At that point, you just kind of remember where everything is. So you basically just know when the game will start loading. You know when it's going to do that. So you just, in your muscle memory, you just delay that scroll a little bit. Just delay that scroll by like a third of a second. And it's just like a natural thing that's easy to learn how to do. It's not something you really even have to think about once you get good at the game.
And like you were saying with the quick save and quick load, like, so it seems like the game actually does keep track of how fast you were moving when you saved, and will apply that when you load. So do you pretty much always want a quick save while you're in the air?
Yes.
That way, okay, that way, no matter, like, because if you quick saved on the ground, you might have already messed up your bunny hopping, and then when you load, you're screwed. It's still messed up, right? But if you do it in the air, I imagine you keep that speed and you get another shot.
Mm-hmm. If you see earlier when he's doing a lot of save loads earlier in the clip, he's actually doing those because he needs to maintain pretty much all of his HP throughout this section of this map or of the chapter in order to be able to do the grenade boost. So like he has to do a lot of save loads around enemies, because what will happen if he does that is the enemies will reset their animation that they're currently in. And in the case of the alien boarding out things, their animations are like 3 seconds long, so you never get hit by them unless you're with the soldiers, they like put down their weapon if you save load, and then they have to pick it back up. So it's an easy way of making sure that you don't take any damage, and kind of ties into the HP conservation thing earlier. There's so many things you do in this game just to keep your HP high.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So we'll go ahead and move on now to another skip, the apprehension garbage skip.
So this is a pretty minor skip. It saves 4 seconds compared to the old route that we're doing. But basically what he's doing here is he's jumping off this box and then jumping on top of the garbage compactor thing that like crushes you, kind of like in A New Hope. What makes this trick fun to me is that when you jump on top of these things, normally they just start going automatically, but you skip the trigger that makes them start. So what you have to do is you have to jump on top of them, and then for some reason these things are motorized exactly the same way that trains are. So this is one of those trains. This is one of the few trains we use in the game. We activate that train in order to break the box, leading us to the next chapter, because for some reason it's unbreakable with anything else.
All right, I take my previous statement back. We do need trains.
Yes,
just this once though.
This is a good train.
That's just beautiful.
All right, well, if that wasn't cool enough, I really like this next clip, which is the Golden Pebble. It's the greatest name.
I thought this was an official name of the trick, and then people told me that I was making it up, but I like it anyway.
Doesn't matter.
So this trick is like a pretty risky object boost that lets you go through that little pipe thing a lot faster. The main reason it's so risky is because it's really hard to control taking fall damage after doing this. So like you can see when he does it, that he goes through the tunnel and takes no damage. He got pretty lucky that happened. Either that or he just knows how to do this and I'm dumb and don't know how. But I don't know what it is at this point. But not only does he do this trick, he does it with like no setup, which just angers me. Like normally you like get on the rock, you push the pebble closer to you, and then you push it to the right. But he just pushes it to the right, and it's like whatever. It's like he does a trick that's already super inconsistent and super hard, and he just does it way more inconsistently and faster, and he can just do it because Maxam.
Wow.
I love that that's kind of a theme with a lot of people who come on the show talking about world records. Yeah, just because it's Maxam. It's just how they are.
Just age things, dude. It's just
just age things.
Yeah, I mean, Maxam's been running this game for actually such a long time. He's one of the oldest. He's probably the most. He's probably been running the game the longest of currently playing runners. He's been running this game like since it was ran on hard, like way into that era, which is really why he has so much like experience and he's just so good at the game. He's been playing it for so long. He put so much time into all these sections and optimized so many things. I mean, he almost completely rerouted the game once he came back recently. Like he made a segmented run, a solo segmented run that introduced so many new ideas to the run, and it was like the most significant period of rerouting in this game recently.
Wow.
All thanks to this one guy being a big gamer.
Now, you mentioned fall damage, like that he wasn't taking any fall damage you normally do. Is there actually a fall in that tunnel somewhere, or is it something about how fast you're moving horizontally? Because I don't even see one, if there is.
You go down a little bit, but not enough that you would normally take fall damage. It's really just the high speed. You kind of just slam into the ceiling of the thing, which forces you downward.
Oh, okay.
Taking fall damage that way.
Gotcha. But there is a little, like, dip.
I think...
Tube.
Yes, there is a small dip. I think the reason he doesn't take fall damage is something weird with the frame rate. He like lowers his frame rate temporarily in that tunnel. It's barely possible to see. You can you'll probably be able to see it this time a little bit. For like a brief period there, he lowers his FPS, and that helps. But it's not like a guarantee that you won't take fall damage ever. That you have to like know what you're doing. Which no one else does. He's the only person who knows anything about what this is. I don't know. I don't think anyone else is. Maybe another runner named Molly, a Russian runner. He does crazy stuff all the time too.
See, the secret is making everybody think you know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know how this works.
You think he has no setup, and it's because he doesn't, and he just prays, and it works out.
All right, so we're going to move on to some of the processing cycles, the residue processing cycles.
So this is the end of the same chapter. This is a very big cyclic-based map. The first cycle here is getting past all of these piston things without having them crush you, or you getting stuck on them. And then at the end of the map, there's also another cycle you need to make. So basically, this is a pretty big map for this game standards. Like it's like a 20-second long map or so. But you have to go through the entire thing near flawlessly in order to make the fast cycle at the very end, because you want to be able to make it to the end and just be able to fall right into the center of like the crusher thing that kind of pincers back and forth. And if you're a little bit too slow, then this thing will end up closing and you have to wait for it to open up slowly again, and it's painful and sad. But I just really like this map. Also, conveyor belt movement's super fun because it gives you super big speed boost for some reason. Like you can see that he just jumps on these conveyor belts and goes really fast, faster than he normally would, because he's already up to 800 after 3 hops. So
yeah, that's crazy. It's like literally more than the Steam cap.
Mm-hmm. You can get more than the Steam cap in like 2 jumps if you're good. It's wild.
And they're not even moving that fast.
Yeah. Is he jumping over these trip mines, or like is that same load to avoid them?
So you can jump over them, but what he's doing is he's lowering his FPS to 4, and what this will do is that there's basically never an active frame where you're inside the trip mine wire. You kind of just like, because the game's so choppy, you just kind of teleport from before it to after it, and the game never realizes you're in the wires, so why would it blow up? Easy way of doing that. FPS stuff is like, in my opinion, one of the cooler things that this game has. There's like Maxam alone uses like 6 or 7 different FPS values throughout the run.
That's pretty cool.
Mainly because of tricks called jump bugs that are basically every jump bug. There's one in like the first or in the second clip that I didn't talk about, but every jump bug has a unique FPS value that makes it work. So you need to have a bunch of FPS binds if you go for jump bugs like he does. He goes for like 4 or 5 throughout the run.
I'm sad virtually all my speed games have like their speed tied to FPS, so we have to lock it. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, it's so easy in this game. You literally go in the console and you type FPS_max and then a number, and you did it. And you can bind that to any key you want. Super easy.
So we'll go ahead and move on now to another cool name, I feel like. The pipe-to-pipe skip. This is pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. So this is an introduction of Gauss boosting. So the Gauss rifle is a really powerful rifle in the game that I think it's the thing that does like the most damage in the game. Maybe the rocket launcher does a bit more, but I haven't used the rocket launcher since like 2013, so I don't know. Basically, this skip, what he's doing is that there's a little rock right outside this first pipe here, and he shoots the Gauss rifle, which has a recoil boost effect, and he'll launch off of that rock to gain some height. And then he shoots the pipe to the side of him, which will reflect the Gauss shot back into Gordon and give him a boost upward. So it basically allows you to skip this entire cliff map, which not only has a lot of enemies and stuff to fight, but also a mini boss / boss, whatever you want to consider it. It's like a helicopter fight you have to get through. But you can just skip the entire thing by going right to the end of the map with this trick.
I'll go just nonchalantly at the end of it. It's just like, oh yeah, and I popped up above the map, but I need to get back down into that pipe. So it's just
that was like a moment of like, oh dang.
Yeah, exactly. Like, could probably go over that wall, but that wouldn't really work out in my favor. So let's just make sure we get back down to that pipe.
Yeah, unfortunately, this game doesn't really have much anything cool with the out of bounds, at least with the gold source version. The source version is completely different. Out of bounds is everywhere, but not this one. This one has like very little useful out of bounds stuff. Like, there's an out of bounds strat for this map, but it's barely even out of bounds. I don't know if it's considered out of bounds by this game's definition, but yeah, there's just self-gossing is a really cool thing, and goss boosting in general is just a really cool thing. It's a really powerful tool, but you have such limited ammo with this weapon that you can't use it as much as you'd like. This is another thing that makes object boosting good. It doesn't require ammo, but this does.
Gotcha.
A good goss boost requires 13 ammo, and you can carry 100 at most, so you can only do so many.
Now, the second part of the Gauss boost where he's shooting off the giant object in the middle, is there like a tell for that, or is it just kind of like feel it out?
You just kind of, if you shoot it, you'll get hit by it again. It's kind of hard to get the shot on the pipe itself, just because you kind of have to do a little bit of a flick, but it's not super hard. It's pretty lenient with how easily it will work. As long as you hit the pipe, you'll pretty much get the height boost.
Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on now to boxed item duplication, since we need some more Gauss ammo.
Yes, we do. So this really highlights how important Gauss ammo is. This box is next to an explosive box, and if you break the box with a shotgun blast and the explosion at the exact same frame by doing like one shotgun blast on both at the same time, the contents of the box will end up dropping twice. So instead of getting 20 Gauss ammo from it, you get 40. And if you look at his Gauss ammo, he's down already to 8 right now. So he's already used like over 80 at this point in the run. So getting that extra 40 is super useful and will allow us to do some Gauss tricks that we otherwise would not be able to do later on.
So why does it look like his ammo is reducing, like right after he picks up the extra ammo?
He's charging the weapon. So what he's doing here is that he's charging the weapon and then save loading, which will boost you in a like default direction. It's like an angle of like 0 pitch, 0 yaw, which is like just basically you in this instance you are moving at the very opposite of that. So it boosts you like the perfect way and you get a ton of speed from it. Because Gauss boosting depends on like your angle and everything. It's a bit weird.
Okay. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go ahead and move on now to probably the most famous glitch that people know of in Half-Life, and that's the infinite health door.
Yep. So everyone, a lot of people know this at least. So this trick in particular is one of the most important, if not the most important in the entire game. It's a trick that allows you to skip doing a lot of things later in the game because you have a lot of HP. As you can see, he's going to run into this door. The soldier's going to open it for him because he can't open this door. Only NPCs can. And now the door's healing him. So
that's how doors work.
Yeah. Yes. So and for some reason, this is the only map in any Half-Life game that was ever like this. For some reason, the doors on this map do -1 damage to you. And it's every door on this map, for some reason, that just does this -1 damage. There's another door on this map that a lot of people used for IHD on different like runs of the game, like the PS2 speedrun. This game is ran on PS2 by one person ever, soon to be 2. But like it just allows you to get incredible amounts of HP. And one thing I want to bring up about this is that the thing I love most about this trick is that it doesn't actually give you like infinite health. You still have to think about how much HP you have for the rest of the run. If you can see the health kind of cycles above once it gets to 255, the game only displays HP as like a byte, so it doesn't display higher than 255. So it basically cycles over. But for the rest of the game, you basically need to keep in mind how much HP you've lost so that you can make sure you don't die before the game ends.
So I'm assuming that newer runners would probably get more health for safety, whereas he probably does minimum as little as he possibly could need.
To put it this way, pretty much every run he gets past this point, he says, I've probably taken too much damage to finish the run. Pretty much every single run he says, I've taken too much damage, I can't finish this. He goes for 7 cycles, I believe. I go for 9. Each cycle takes 2.5 seconds, so he saves 5 seconds on me for doing that. But 7 cycles is just insane. Like, it's incredible how precise and how close to perfect you need to be in your HP routing to have 7 cycles work.
Oh my god. So each one cycle is 255?
Yes.
Health? Okay.
You use a lot of HP in the last. Keep in mind there are like 6 minutes left of the run, and you go through like 3,000 HP.
Wow.
Yeah, I was about to
It's
say.
actually really fun to watch.
Well, it's like 1,800, 2,000, something like that.
I was about to ask, like, how do the runners like know like how their health is doing? Because like, you know, it's like you said, it only displays in 1 byte, so they don't really know for sure what their health is. So,
Gotta
like,
map it out.
So I can't actually speak for what other runners do. What I personally do is I basically keep in mind how much unnecessary damage I've taken. So I don't really keep in mind how much health I have at that moment. Like some people, I don't know what other people do. Some people might keep track of the cycles and stuff, but I keep track of, like, if I took an extra hit from a Vortigaunt, for instance, I'm down like 20 HP than where I should be. So if I end up being down like 100, I'm going to have to forego a grenade boost later on, like one of the ones that doesn't save as much time. So you just have to keep in mind how much damage you've taken that you don't normally account for in your route with the HP.
Okay. Alright, so go ahead and move on to the Lambda Core Teleporter cutscene skip. That's a mouthful.
Yes, so I haven't played this part of the game in forever, so I don't know how long it takes, but this skip is an AI abuse where this guy opens his door for you and then runs away from the grenade to open some more doors for you. And what this will do is allows you to get in this teleporter room, and then you can use this Hornet gun, which if you shoot at the teleporter core will end up making a trigger that's normally supposed to kill you not work. So you get past that trigger, and then there's a trigger that will teleport you into the next chapter. So what this does is it allows you to skip not only a long cutscene where you talk to these two people and pretend that you care what they're saying, into not only that, then you have to wait for the teleporter to charge up, which takes like 5 minutes or something, where you're just fighting Zen people, and Zen being like an alternate dimension, these alien people. And, you know, the combat ain't exactly why we're here, so we want to avoid that. If, like, the fact that this is possible in my brain, I just don't know why the Hornet gun works like it does. It's just, like, why does it do the things that it does? It does so many weird things. It, like, reverses doors that are opening. It just has really interesting, dumb properties. And if it didn't, then who knows if we would be able to skip this. And if we couldn't, this run would be very, very not as good. Like, it's just a miracle, man. There's so many miracles in this game. Same with Half-Life 2, really. Good God. Like, why is Red Letter Day skip a thing? I don't understand it.
It's one of those things. It's kind of like what we were talking about before, where like because certain cutscenes exist in games, you end up getting ridiculous tech in them and everything. But like, it's also one of those things where because you found a way to do it, you never know if there are other ways. Like oftentimes you don't find out if there are other ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, who knows? You know, if this skip was never found, maybe it would have taken another 2 months, but a different one would have been found. Like maybe there's 9 different ways of breaking this thing, but maybe not. It sure doesn't seem like it.
I won't talk about Half-Life 2 too much, but in that game's case, the existence of the cutscene, in my opinion, is still not good. Because there is no other universe that we found Red Letter Day skip. There is no, like, the fact that it was found is, like, unbelievable amounts of luck.
Yeah, we definitely talked about that one when it was found on the show because it was pretty
incredible. The main technique found for it was found by a random dude on Twitch. Who has never speedrun before. He just saved Half-Life 2.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. But we're getting into Zen now, which is the last little bit of the game in the next clip.
So we're going to go ahead and move on to probably, I think, is one of the coolest movement techs in this game, and that's like low gravity B-hop movement.
Yep. So
I'm sad we're not going to get any more green flashes on Darkman, by the way, because we were just playing, like the screen is just is great.
Nice.
Sorry.
No, hold on.
There you go. He's being abducted.
Go ahead, Alex.
So in Zen, there's less gravity by like about 3/4 or something, roughly about, I don't know. But what this allows you to do is it allows you to have a lot more freedom with where you can bunny hop. Like if we had traditional gravity here, we wouldn't be able to do the sequence we do here where we jump over above those rocks and everything. Another thing to highlight is just, again, how broken the Gauss rifle is for getting speed. Like, all of the speed he gets throughout this clip is from 3 different Gauss charges. The first one at the beginning there, the second one in the middle here, which gives him just a ton of speed for this section, and then a third save load Gauss here that just allows him to get through this section just incredibly quickly.
Basically being over 1,000 speed for like almost most of that.
Yeah, and again, keep in mind the default speed in this game is like 320 running in a direction.
Right.
Another thing to keep in mind with the Zen part of the game is normally in this game you get like a backpack that lets you do like big jumps. Like it's like similar to like the exosuit thing in the Counter-Strike Battle Royale thing. If like the 3 people in the chat who have played that. But it's like we skip that, which is unfortunate because that thing could be really cool, but we'd have to watch 8 minutes or whatever of cutscenes to do that. But at the same time, we can move completely fine. We probably wouldn't use it for anything anyway, considering how many options we already have.
Right.
It's pretty incredible what we can do already.
Yeah,
All right.
Low gravity bunny hopping, dude. That's awesome.
So we'll go ahead and move on to the final clip. It's probably the best for the last, and this is it, the final boss. As Alex likes to says in his clip description, the world record clutch here.
Yes, so he barely clinches getting the record here, and not in terms of time, but in terms of actually being able to finish the run. So this boss fight, the quick kill involved with this boss fight involves just using all of your really powerful arsenal really quickly, like using a bunch of SMG nades, revolver shots, and everything. You can see at the very end of the clip here,
Oh, we did it.
he finishes the run literally like right as he teleports away into this room. So the way that this boss works is that the boss will shoot these green energy ball things at you that you can get rid of by shooting at them a lot. But in this case, he spawned it and he immediately got teleported, so he didn't really have time to destroy it. If he didn't finish this run, the literal like milliseconds he did, he would have gotten teleported in that room. This boss would have still been alive, and it would have taken him far more than 4.5 seconds to get out of the room and kill the boss. So this like barely made it. Like he got as close as you really could have. It's incredible.
So how does he even? Well, I guess you guys probably have an auto splitter for this game, right?
Yes.
Okay, so is that like pretty much the only way he even knew that he beat it, or is?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like you can see, there's like a yellow timer on the side. We actually have like an in-game timer we use that's in the game itself, but we had to like mod it in because Source Runs has incredible programmers that can do these kind of things. But you can see that the timer ends, and the timer ends once Nihilanth is dead and you've beaten the game. So, yeah. I don't know what would have happened if we didn't have an auto splitter. I wonder if he would have split.
Right, like how
it would have been frame counted or whatever, but
right. It's just it's one of those things where it's like,
Oh, we did it.
is there even enough of an audio cue before you get teleported to know that you did it? Like, are you really counting the damage that well that you know you did it? Like, it's crazy.
Like, with how tightly we do this boss, like everyone in speedrunning is obviously trying to like save every second they can. So like nowadays we don't do as much shooting at this boss as we used to. Like he doesn't shoot him for very long there. And what you have to do with this boss is like circle around under him so that he doesn't shoot you. Because if you circle around under him, he'll never get a clear line of sight on you, so he won't shoot you. And at the very end, if he ended up getting seen by it and the Nihilanth would have fired some electricity at him or whatever, he would have not finished because, you know, he wouldn't have opened up his head, he wouldn't have gotten the kill. And just like so many small things went perfectly here.
Oh my god.
But you can see he's just like shooting at his head here. I don't know if this is because he hasn't killed him yet. I think it's because he got seen and he fired that green energy thing that took him here. So like if he didn't get seen there, he would have been able to more cleanly like finish the run because the Nyland would have opened up their head earlier instead of like doing what he did, which is shooting the thing. So it's a lot of very tiny things went very well here. But I have to wonder if this didn't end up finishing, I wonder if he would have been able to get the 27 before he stopped running for a brief period. It's like, who knows? Like, the fact that this run didn't 27 was pretty surprising at the time, because he had a lot of time save on Lambda Core, but he only saved the second. He had, like, 15 total to save.
Right.
So, going into the later portion of the run, it was pretty like, oh man, you might get a 27, you might do the thing that no one else has ever done, ever. But he hasn't done it yet. But I'm sure he will. I'm sure he'll come back, play for 3 days, and get a 27. A time that no one else will like ever get, because God, it's so hard.
Just one of those things where, like, I guess he was ready to take a break. He wanted that one more PB in it. If it wasn't this one, would it have been?
Yeah, I sometimes think that. I don't know. I'm sure he'll get it at some point anyway. He's just been busy with like work related stuff lately, so he hasn't been able to grind as much. He does have to grind quite a bit to get these kind of times still. He's not that much of a robot. He's just only like... He's still a bit of a cyborg. Yeah, he's a bit of
a couple parts got replaced, you know.
So kind of like, and we've kind of alluded to this, but like, just give me a sense of like how good this is compared to his competition. Like, what is the second place time exactly?
I believe it is 28:45.
So
I don't know how many 28s Proto has finished. I don't know how many like runs he's gotten that have been sub 29, but Maxam has at the very least like 90% of every 28 gotten in this game. Like,
wow.
Like 2 people have ever gotten it, and Proto I would say has probably gotten less than 5 to 10 28s, but he's gotten that many 28 records. So.
Wow.
It's not even a question of really like, you know, JHobz likes to kind of make fun of me, and I ask a lot of the guest segment show people that like how hard would it be to get the world record. It's really not even about asking the question at this point. You know, my question that I would have to ask is like, how realistic is it? Like, how much time would second place, third place, fourth place, how much would they need to put in to get the world record at this point?
How much would you need to put in?
Yeah, like that.
I've thought about this quite a bit, actually. Like, you know, the idea of getting record in my favorite run that I do is obviously appealing, but like, on Steam, I have about 1,200 hours logged into the game. We can run the game, like, we run the game through Steam, even though we don't play the Steam version. Don't worry about it.
Add non-Steam game. I get it.
Yeah, basically. But I have like 1,200, 1,300 hours. I probably need to double that.
Wow.
Okay.
I'd probably need to double that.
That's about what I expected, honestly.
And he's less than 2 minutes away. Let's just put that for context.
Yeah, I have a 2950 for reference, which getting sub 30 is incredible alone. like getting sub 30 is a feat. It is a feat in this game to get sub 30, but like this is like, people look at the leaderboard and it's like, all right, 29's bad. This guy is good. Like and like you can't really change that. You can't convince people that, you know, sub 30 is incredibly hard until they do it themselves. But you can't appreciate how hard something is until you actually try to do it yourself. But like,
sure. Absolutely,
it's like, it's incredible. Like especially watching this run back. This run has so many mistakes in it, and it's like there's so many points in these clips where he loses a lot of time, but he's still able to get a time no one else is getting close to. I'm just trying to think, like, what if he has a run where he makes like very few big errors?
Right.
Like he made a lot of big errors in this run, but was still able to get the record.
Does he suddenly save a minute or something? You know, like just something outrageous that you're not even.
Yeah, I remember when he came back. He had like a 28:30 something when he came back and lowered his time down to what it is now. And I remember like within the first week of him being back, he was on like a 27:45 or something pace. Like, and into one of the harder chapters in the game, and everyone was just like, man, he's getting like he's de-resting and getting this pace. like come on. Where is my justice?
Sometimes all you need is a break, man. It's crazy.
It's
weird.
wild how much a
Hell,
break can do. It is really wild. I took a break and then came back, and within like 3 days got over 30-second PB, getting my first 29. So
Wow.
it's wild what it can do.
All right, so yeah, of course, as we alluded to, that this game will be at SGDQ, and one of the reasons why we have Alex on is Alex is actually involved in the run at SGDQ. So, Alex, if you want to kind of talk a little bit about that.
So it's the first showing of Half-Life since SGDQ 17, back when I ran the game. Or excuse me, SGDQ 18 when Proto ran the game. I don't know why I forgot about that. Anyway, this is going to be a race of the game between me and another Source game speedrunner, and Sushi. You might also know him from Celeste. He's a really
Celeste,
big Celeste speedrunner.
Really young kid.
Yes, he's like 17, but for all purposes, he's going to be 9 on the couch. Don't worry about it.
So he's gonna be Ace. Got it.
Yes. Him and Ace are brothers. They're twin brothers, even though there was nothing.
Of course.
But yeah, I'm really excited to do that run, mainly because Sushi and I are super close. We're both good speedrunners. I have a ton of respect for him in every game he runs, and it's just nice for me to, or it's just nice to have like this kind of like motivation. Just like get good. Stop being lazy. Play your, like sometimes you need some reason to play your video game because man, it's so much effort to speed.
Oh yeah.
Times. Like, the daily having to play multiple hours. Sometimes you don't want to do it, but when you have a GDQ run coming up.
As someone with a GDQ race coming up with 2 people who are currently better than him, I totally feel that on a deep emotional level. Might have been practicing before this talk show. So.
Yeah, like I did a portal run at AGDQ, a race with Connor, who was way better than me when we got the run in, and I grinded my heart out and then lost. So I grinded my heart out for like over a month and lost, and he played the game for like 3 hours before. It's like, man.
It's also his game.
Yeah. I like how we can say it's his game, even though I've been playing it like a year or 2 long.
I was gonna say,
that's true.
I'm excited to see this race because Sushi, like M Sushi, I know him for Celeste because I was doing research for the Twitch Rivals Celeste thing, and he said like his whole thing was, oh, I'm a shooter speedrunner, I'm an FPS speedrunner, but then I played Celeste randomly and got like at it, and I was like, and then I know you from Half-Life and Portal speedruns, like Source games and stuff, and I'm like, I want to see now Sushi in what he claims is like his normal, his native element, right? Like that's his place. And I was just like, yeah, but I've seen Alex do like 6 different GDQ runs or whatever. Like I want to see that race. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, Half-Life was never Sushi's main speedrun. He did it for like a month, like 2 or 3 months or something at the beginning of last year, and he got really good really quickly because that kid is just incredible at getting good. I don't know what it like. Every game he touches, man, it's incredible. Like you can't just like anyone who gets a 28 in Celeste is worth praising. Like that's incredible.
I mean, he was getting like top 5 or something in that Twitch Rivals thing. He'd only been running it for a few months. It was nuts.
And he got second at pace.
Sounds like a trend again. Another trend with the world record holders that we have.
Yeah, but Sushi, he's more known for like Portal stuff, but he's definitely a really good Half-Life runner, and it's going to be a good race, and we're going to have a really good time doing it.
There you go. So yeah, so make sure you do check out the Half-Life race, which is going to be Friday at 10:37 a.m. Event time, which is CDT. So it's going to be an exciting one. So yeah, I just want to say thank you, Alex, so much for taking the time to kind of commentate and break down this world record.
Of course, my pleasure.
Appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. Good luck in the race. I'm not going to take sides, but you know, go ahead, break a leg. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a few minute break. We'll get set up, do a couple lighthearted segments at the end of the show. So stick around, and we'll be back very shortly.
All right, welcome back everybody to the sprint. Thanks for sitting through some ads and stuff, and as we were getting everything set back up, we're going to just have a couple of segments here, really just one at the end for the most part. This is a checkpoint. This is where we kind of check in on how us as hosts are doing in relation to speedrunning and everything. I think in the past it's been where like we're so busy doing other things that nobody's doing any speedrunning, but like I know for me personally, I actually have a bunch of things for once. I've actually been doing speedrunning things. But I'm first going to kick it off to Frozen because you've got probably the most exciting one of all.
I know. I did 100 times Putt-Putt Saves the Zoo
Hell yeah,
run, and honestly, I'm probably going to do it again. But I got world record.
Hold on, Frozen. Before we even continue with your world record, didn't we literally just talk about this last episode? Where doing 100 putt-putt attempts is a bad idea.
Yeah, we did. And Seraphim confirmed that. And about 40 runs in, my wrist was like, this is bad. Why are you doing this to me? And then about like 70 runs in, the wine kicked in and told out everything.
Of course, dude. I mean, if you're doing a centurion, like you got you gotta bust out the alcohol.
No, that's the only way that I could have gotten through it, I'll be honest. But I got world record because, and I still need to actually submit, I need to create the board because there's not a board for 100x. Seraphim had done it beforehand in like a meme race with a friend, and he got like 15 minutes faster than I did because he took it like super seriously, and I was like, wine. I took wine breaks every round. every like 50 seconds or so. It was a wine break. So yeah, that was my 2 weeks of speedrunning, really.
Now the real question I have for you is, are your hands dead yet?
Actually, they felt great the day afterwards. I was kind of surprised. I think wine is the real key. I told Seraphim this, and he was like, I'm not going to do that. But for me, that's worked out.
Oh my god. All right. Darkman, what you got going on since the last show?
So we kind of talked about it the last show, but we had the Classic Mega Relay that's happened last Saturday, June 1st, and that was quite an ordeal. Super fun, like, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed watching it and going through all that, but let me tell you, man, 12 games, 4 teams, over 40 runners, and I was pretty much the main person shepherding everyone.
Whew.
So yep, that was
herding cats.
Oh yes, very much. Normally we have a little bit more help during the day, but Joko, who's the main organizer, had a conflict, so he wasn't able to be there that day. So basically in charge of most of the stuff that day, and it was really just it was a lot. So I'm really happy because the relay was awesome. Like, it went really well. Like, it's so with the 12 games, Mega Man 1 through 11 and Mega Man and Bass, it's about 7.5 hours ish with these teams. And the winner was like the winner and second place were separated by 2 minutes. So that's pretty good for 7.5 hours. Yeah. And especially like Mega Man 1 through 6, literally like all like 4 teams like traded like first place. So it was really cool. It got a little bit, the one team kind of pulled away throughout the second half, but still it was super fun. Everybody had a lot of fun. Aside from some audio issues. Oh, I want to say big shout outs to I did it during the relay, but since he's also our restreamer for today, Enfro, who I call Noah, as his actual name is Noah, he filled in for Muffins, who normally is the restreamer for most of our shows, because Muffins works too hard and she needs a break. So he filled in like last minute, and he didn't really realize what he was getting into, which is like the single most technically like crazy thing we do on this stream, aside from like GDQ itself. So he's just like, we just threw him straight into it.
That was the first thing that he did. There you go. There's a 4-person relay.
Because like relays already, even if it's just one, there's no race component. It's just a relay, are already insane because you have to be ready to switch from one game to the other instantaneously. Like no setup. So now you got to take 4 screens, which already take a lot of real estate, and have 4 more ready to go.
And on top of it, 3 games in the relay can literally, like, because there's like quick kills and like, you know, fast ways to kill the boss and stuff like that, it can literally be the case of like, I need you to, it could literally happen now or 3 minutes from now. I don't know. You just have to kind of watch. So it's like even worse.
Oh my God.
Especially if you don't know the games. Oh my God.
Right. It's 7.5 hours of like, you got to be there and attentive, like for basically the whole time, especially if they start to get further apart from each other and the switches.
Oh my God.
You know, you can't rely on 40 minutes. That was nuts. Oh,
yeah, it was crazy. And there was also one thing that I did want to point out. I wanted to highlight, which is really cool. A pretty cool event happened in the speedrunning community, and that Black Attack, who's known as a Zelda one runner, that's kind of what he's most famous for. He achieved a feat that was really impressive. So for speedrun.com, Zelda 1 has 13 categories with times in it. And as of last week, he managed to achieve the world record in every single category for that game, which is really cool because like every category has like multiple times. Like I'm talking about like 10 plus times each. So like for him to do that just like kind of shows how good he is with that game.
Yeah.
Now
he spent so much time in that game. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. Now it's a little bit outdated now because like in the past couple days, some of the categories he lost the world record, but still, it doesn't matter.
I mean, yeah, regardless, it's neat when anybody has all categories. Like that reminds me years back when Biscuit 047 took all the categories from Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 at the same time. It was just like nuts. I also, we're being told apparently Cheese got a new SM64 120 star world record tonight, like right before we went live. So sorry we didn't catch that one in the news segment. It's about as fresh as it gets. But in terms of my, personal checkpoint updates and stuff, had a lot of speedrunning related stuff or just gaming related stuff also in general. Recently, I had like a 3-day boot camp of Spike Vegeta coming over and us just recording a ton of videos. So got to like talk for 10 hours a day, 3 days in a row. That was kind of nuts. Went to the speedrun sessions. We talked about that or mentioned it earlier, and so we were going to talk about it now. Went to Grand Pooh Bear's speedrun sessions out in Las Vegas, which was a blast. Like that was unbelievable. I was emceeing along with X Water. So basically just kind of like, keeping the crowd all pumped up and everything. And one of the neat things they did was they did crowd control, which is where viewers can send in bits to affect the game and actually like apply power-ups and kill Mario instantly and stuff like that. They did crowd control for Super Mario 64, but they even had it set up so that people that were sitting in the live audience could take, like, they could just show their receipt from the bar and that would be their ticket to like actually do a crowd control. So we were running around with 2 people, like Jakku and Tofu, with tablets, just running around from person to person, being like, all right, who wants to mess with simple flips? Like, you got a message for me? You want to say something as you're awesome. Messing with him and just sending him to his doom. Stuff like that. It was unbelievable. I believe one of our clips tonight is actually from that. And it was like super cool because I think gaming is for everyone and speedrunning is for everyone. And I think part of that also means that like you can still have events that are more about a specific niche and stuff like that, or like you can have games that are like mature content, right? And so it was kind of cool to have a speedrunning event that was 21 plus, like in just terms of it was happening at a casino in Las Vegas, like at a bar. You
have to be 21. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like it was just a neat environment. It was a different environment from usual, and you have people joking and like drinking while playing their game and everything and stuff like that. So it was just neat. Also got to gamble with TMR, which was super fun. I would highly recommend.
Except that you lost money, as
Yeah,
you
it
were
doesn't
saying
even
before.
matter.
You know, it's fine.
Shout outs to our dealer, John.
You know, it was a good
Black-
night when you know the dealer's name.
blackjack dealer's name.
Yeah.
But yeah, in any case, SGDQ is coming up as we talked about, and I'm excited to get back on the Crash 3 Insane Trilogy grind. I did a little bit of streaming earlier today, actually doing that and trying to work out some levels. Definitely feeling the rust, so going to take a few more for sure. Hopefully I can get back like into tip-top shape before SGDQ. And then we've been working on the pre-show as well for SGDQ with the interview team and everything. So if you're not someone who normally catches it from the beginning, we do a little pre-show at the beginning of every GDQ, and we got some wild stuff this time. Like, we've got a pretty cool show planned out. We're still doing rehearsals and tweaking things, but like, there may or may not be a dragon. I'll just leave it at that. So please check that out if you get a chance. It's always at the beginning, the very beginning of the week. And that's mostly what I've been doing speedrunning wise.
And that'll only ramp up even more, over the next between now and GDQ, and I mean also our next show at in 2 weeks. It'll just be constant GDQ stuff for both of you guys.
Yeah, I'm finally done traveling until SGDQ though, because I've been traveling like crazy the last several weeks and months and everything. So I'm excited that like I can actually spend some time sitting down and playing Crash Bandicoot and trying to get good at my speed game before the race. But yeah, with that, any last final updates or thoughts from either of you?
I don't think so.
Cool.
I think we have last minute announcements now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the Frame Fatale submissions, they're gonna be doing it again. Frame Fatale went well, and they're doing a second one. And submissions are open for that right now. I believe we've already gotten like 25 submissions totaling over 30 hours or something, which is super cool. Because a lot of the times you get a lot of smaller submissions. I think it's neat we're getting bigger ones. So please feel free to submit to that. That would be awesome. Definitely want to see more women speedrunners and everything. And the first event was awesome. Let's just make the second one better.
Yep.
And I think that's about it. We got some clips to show you guys at the end here. Darkman, you want to give any preface to these clips at all, or?
Yeah, so there's 2 clips. One is from the Classic Mega Relay that I talked about, and the other is from Speedrun Sessions that JHobz talked about. So both clips are about a minute long-ish. And on the first clip, which is the relay one, I want you to focus on the bottom left part of the screen and just listen to the commentary. That's all you got to do. And then the second part of the second clip, the Speedrun Sessions one, I just want you to pay attention to the fact, look at the health. That's really all you need to do. And then we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, there we go. So we'll see you all in 2 weeks for our last show before SGDQ. And it should be a blast. Take it easy, everybody.
See ya.
Oh, and Power Piston is not being Power Piston. Can't believe it.
This fight is obnoxious.
Look at these patterns. These are so
Is
good.
it? Get out of here. Get out of here.
It seems really easy. It looks really easy.
No. Can we just turn his square off? He's cheating. I don't care if he's on my team. That was not appropriate for this stream.
That fight can go really badly.
That was some form of like manipulation that I've never heard of. It was called getting incredibly lucky. Power Piston is gross. He goes up and down the wall, and you just have to fire and hope that he doesn't dodge your tomahawks. And yeah, he just didn't miss, dude. He didn't miss. It's not fair.
If you aim correctly, you get this.
Like, yeah, you can.
Flips has wings right now. He is drinking a Red Bull. He is going to the... Oh, never mind. He's just inevitably going to die unless someone out there gives him some health. Unless he can get some health.
I'm landing in that pipe.
I think you're going to... If you land in that pipe, I am going to pop off. Whoa! my god!